Welcome to the Power of Design podcast. My name is Jack Osa. I'm an architect, born and raised in Colombia, South America. Years ago, I migrated to the United States to follow my dreams. And today, I'm the founder and principal of Osa Studio, a multidisciplinary architectural design firm in Charlotte, North Carolina. In this podcast, we talk about design, business, creativity, and the inspiration we need to create an exciting and powerful built environment.
Our guest today is Stephanie Spivey, a seasoned professional who has made significant strides in the world of commercial real estate. Stephanie is no stranger to the complexities of the market and someone with a wealth of experience and knowledge in the real estate industry. Having joined CBRE in 2012, she has honed her skills and expertise, working tirelessly with both the Charlotte and Chicago office agency leasing teams.
Welcome to the Power of Design podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So I was thinking about when did we meet? This morning I was telling Paul who was coming to the podcast. I'm like, man, I don't remember when I met Stephanie. Do you remember?
It's been a minute. Actually, I don't remember we met, but it's been several years for sure.
Yeah, I think it was the first thing you asked me for help with a brochure for the exchange.
Actually, yes. And
Yeah.
I think the same brochure that we use today. Oh, yes. It would have been in 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
When we were doing the renovations for
Yeah.
Dulwich.
That's
That's been a long time. Okay.
Yeah,
I
I know.
I don't like saying it was that far back, but yeah, that's
Awesome.
funny.
Well, Stephanie, thank you so much for coming. Enjoy working with you. I really
Agreed.
admire everything that you're doing. You always have such a great attitude and making things happen. So I'm always very excited to talk to you and see what you're doing today.
Agreed. Yeah, we're really busy today. It depends on which sector of real estate you're looking into, but for office leasing here in Charlotte, I think we're really fortunate. And I was talking to Joe Franco, my partner, this morning, and I think in the last 30 days we've signed 90,000 square feet worth of deals.
Wow,
That's huge.
I know.
So I try not to brag too much with my colleagues in sister markets, but I'm glad to be in Charlotte.
Yeah, and if that's the reality of what's happening, is the truth. I mean,
Correct. It's like not to brag or anything.
And honestly, because sometimes I feel the same where some people might not have a lot of work. We have a lot of work. We're very busy. We have
do.
a huge backlog, and I'm like, yeah, because we work for it. Relationships,
Correct.
Doing the work, years of work, adding value to others.
Correct.
Well, that shows up.
I mean,
Yeah.
you're a prime example of that. Like just
Yeah.
building relationships, getting your name out there, starting from the bottom, like not the bottom, but building your own business
Sure.
from the bottom up, and creating this stunning office. This is great.
Yeah.
So.
It's not free.
No, it is not.
Yeah. So Stephanie, I'd love to learn more about yourself. Where are you from? Where did you grow up?
Sure.
Just kind of understanding you as a person. How do you slowly get to where you are today?
Yeah, so I am from Eastern North Carolina, Bailey, North Carolina to be exact. It's about 3 hours east of Charlotte, 2 hours from the coast. A very tiny town. I think there's a population of 700.
Wow, 700. That's
Correct. It is. When I tell you, it is not on the map.
But when you
it
left,
is not.
since you left, 699.
I don't think they've increased in population. But no, it's a 2 stoplight town. I remember when we got our second stoplight, it was a huge deal. But yeah, so a small rural town. Actually, it's funny. You don't know what you don't know until you look back. And I went to an agriculture high school.
Mhm.
And so, I was in the FFA, which is Future Farmers of America. And when I finally went to college, I was like, wait, like everyone didn't have a bunch of farm animals
Yeah.
on their high school grounds. So in hindsight, it's pretty funny. It was a great experience. So,
That's
but I'm
awesome.
glad to be out.
Yeah.
Just so we're all clear.
Yeah. So what was the first step for you to leave that town?
I knew I wanted more than what existed. I just didn't know what that was. And so it's funny. I see kids today that go and tour college campuses. I never did that. I think a kid in my class, his sister went to UNC Wilmington, and I thought she was so cool. And so I was like, that's where I'm going to go.
Yeah.
And so I applied there. I got in and I went, and that was it. Yeah.
That's amazing.
And it was funny because in college, I visited Charlotte for the first time with some college friends of mine. And I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, this is the big city. Like, I mean, I didn't get on a plane until I was 21. So very sheltered, very small town life up until college. So
that's amazing.
I'm making up for lost time.
Yeah.
Since then.
Wow. And so you go to Wilmington, and what did you study?
I was a biology major.
Oh,
which is my mom to this day is like, when are you going to become a scientist?
Yes.
I'm like, broker's just fine. But no, my goal was to become an orthodontist. I have a big thing for teeth.
Yes.
Which is an odd thing, I know. And so I realized it was a ton of school past 4 years, and biology was so difficult that I was like, no way. Like, I am tapped out at 4 years, and just kept with the degree, and that's what I graduated with. Then the economy crashed in 2008.
Yeah.
And I did foreclosures.
Wow.
So yeah, it took a weird left turn.
How did you get in touch with that world?
I remember, so I graduated. Everything fell apart. I knew I wanted to come to Charlotte, so I did. And I knew a few folks in Charlotte. I had a few friends coming here as well when we graduated. And one of my college roommates, her mom worked at a law firm here in town. And they did foreclosures, and it was a booming industry. And they were like, one come, one all, like, we'll take you.
Yeah.
And I did that for a year and a half.
So it was like processing paperwork, or?
Yeah, I was the numbers gal. So doing a lot of math, just calculating like debt owed, and, very exciting things.
Yeah.
I left work every day very fulfilled.
Wow.
Said no one ever.
That's interesting. So that was your first contact with the real estate market?
Yeah, and not a great way. So, yeah, after that, I moved to Denver, Colorado for a year. Kind of just pissed around, skied, like not a lot of direction. Came back, and when I came back, a guy I was dating at the time, his dad was a managing director at a local firm here. And so, it's all in who you know. And he made an introduction to what was it at the time? It was property management role that CBRE had opened.
Yeah.
And I interviewed for it. I didn't get it. And so a year goes by, and Liz Rivers, who's still with CBRE, she reached out and she was like, yeah, that role you didn't get, do you mind like re-interviewing for it? And I was like, listen, I can't be let down twice. Like that would be a little devastating this early in my career.
Yes.
And she was like, listen, just interview again. So I got the role. I did property management for about a year and a half, and I realized it was not the field for me.
Yeah.
And so then at the time, we had a position opening up on our agency team in our Charlotte office with Ann Volcano and Jessica Brown. So I applied, got it. I was in that role for about 6 months before I transferred to Chicago. I was there with CB for 2 years, and then came back in December of 2016. So it's kind of the same time Joe Franco was coming over as well from Cushman.
Yeah.
And we started together in January 2017.
Wow, that's awesome. Tell me about going to Chicago, because there is a huge jump in, environment, and
it's insane.
And, design, quality, buildings. That's a whole different world than here. Like, how was that experience?
The experience was wonderful. I met some of the best people, which is, when I tell you there's so many takeaways that I had from that 2-year stint. One, I brought them the World Series. I mean, you're welcome, Chicago.
Yeah.
But no, I'm kidding. I had 2 brokers that we were under on our team, and there was a set of 12 of us. And, here in Charlotte, we have 5. So it's double the size of the team. But 2 of those folks are my clients today.
Wow.
So it's like one big lesson learned was never burn bridges.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you never know who you're going to work with again in the future.
Sure.
And gosh, that was 7 years ago. So, and then last year we got Joe and I were contacted by another broker that I worked under that team.
Mm-hmm.
She's with a different group that would be
Wow.
our client today.
Yeah.
And so we're like meeting with her in 2 weeks. So it's just so funny how small the world is.
Yes.
But yeah, it's just a different world. Like we have, Lord, I think the biggest tenant rep team here in Charlotte for office is maybe 10, 12 brokers. In Chicago, it was like 48 on our team. And that was for downtown Chicago only.
Wow.
So just to kind of give you a little bit of perspective. But I think just meeting new people, building relationships,
Yeah.
which clearly are carrying forward to today.
So do you think that while you were there is when you really kind of learn how does this work? How to really sell properly, how to understand the client, how to make things happen?
For sure. I think it's where I was able to sink my teeth in a little bit, just because prior to that, I was really not in,
Mm-hmm.
I was in property management, which honestly, I think is a great foundation to start
Mm-hmm.
because you learn how buildings work, how things are paid, which is great. It's a great foundation. Moving into the more brokerage side, you learn how deals get done, the creativity behind it, the persistence behind it. And then just having, different personalities that you're under because Lord knows everybody has an ego.
Yeah.
So leaving all that behind and then coming into a team with Joe, it was great, a great background. So.
Wow. Do you have any story from Chicago where you remember, something you made your first deal or something that you remember that it was important for you?
Lord, that's a good question. I don't. Honestly, when I was in Chicago, I was more of in a marketing role versus a junior broker role.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because when I was in Chicago for 2 years, and that's usually kind of your jumping point to move into brokerage.
Yeah.
And I had reached out to Ann Volcano at the time.
Yeah.
Who was still with CB,
Yeah.
leading that team. And I said, I'm about to cement myself here in this city because I'm going to go into a junior role.
Yeah.
And I'm going to learn the clients, the market, the brokers. Like once you do that, it's kind of hard to break away.
Yeah.
And she said to me, she goes, if you don't move back here, I'll never forgive you. And I said, all right, we're doing it. And she goes, you have a spot on the team. Get over here.
Wow.
And so Joe and I literally came back onto the team, or I came back onto the team and Joe joined the team at the exact same time.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting time.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And at that point, was it all like commission based or do you have some type of salary?
Yeah.
here?
So every shop is different. I think JLL to this day, I think most of their brokers have some sort of draw that's like minor, but at least you get a check coming in.
Yeah.
Mine, and it's all in how you negotiate it, but mine, I think my first year I was salary, but come 6 months into my first year, I was able to start getting on commissions.
Yeah.
Mind you, it was like minor, but the good thing is it starts to build a runway of income.
Sure.
That progressively just increases over time.
Right.
It was a nominal amount over my salary that I made that year, but it segues into other deals and it just kind of gets the ball moving.
Sure. And I think that's one of those things where I think for you guys as brokers, you're more like your own business than an employee with a salary because you're really paid on results.
Correct.
You
eat what you kill.
Yeah. You
exactly
get
right.
paid if the deal happens. There is no deal.
And that's the thing. If you're not motivated, if you're not self-motivated, and the thought of, not eating, paying rent, all of that jazz doesn't motivate you to work, nothing will.
You need to be able to endure that. I remember when I started my business. So previously, I was employee. I had a paycheck. So a paycheck hit my bank account every 2 weeks. So
it's comfortable.
And then to go to that from that, space where you don't think about that, now to think about when is the next paycheck coming from, because now it's my result. I'm not selling my time now. I'm selling results.
Correct.
If I add value to this client and they, do something with the product of my work, then I get paid. And just getting to be comfortable without that certainty was hard for me. It took me probably a year because the anxiety was killing me. I was like, okay, I have money for 3 months, Okay, good. Yeah. No. No, I have money for 2 months.
Correct.
Yes.
And you know what's funny is I've been doing, so I'm, let's see, January will be my 8th year commission only.
Mm-hmm.
To this day, I still look at my bank account and I say, okay, based on what I spend today,
Yes.
I've got X amount of months of
Yes.
runway. So if like literally the faucet turned off tomorrow, I wouldn't starve
know.
for X months.
It's crazy. and that's my measure of success.
You know,
that when I said
I'm glad
one
I'm
more
not the only
month,
one.
got
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
I did it 2 more months.
Right.
So it's interesting because there's a whole different experience of, living your life as an adult and making a living, getting a paycheck for sure versus having to work for it.
Correct.
It's a whole different dynamic.
Well, and also not having a roof on what you can make.
Yes.
So it's like I can make as
it
little
goes,
as I
it
want.
goes both ways.
Correct.
Yeah.
And if I really grind, like I can make as much as I want. And that's kind of the luxury in it all.
Yeah.
Just with a lot of anxiety tied to it. So.
Yeah. And at least for me, I know that once I get a contract signed, at least I'm invoicing every month. So I know there is something coming in. But you guys don't have that.
No.
Don't you get like a big fat check,
So,
once all the work is finished?
It's funny. I try not to. So we get paid every Friday if you get a commission. Like once it comes in, every Friday pay goes out. I think in my beginning, when I was really counting like the pennies coming in, I want to say I went like 11 Fridays or something like that. Like it was a lot of Fridays that I counted. And I was like, holy shit. Like I've made a mistake. Like this isn't going to shake.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I started in 2017 and, COVID didn't happen until 2020, but like I'd built enough runway that like things were kind of going well. I just, it makes me nervous. The folks that started during COVID, it's like, all right, this is not reality.
Yes.
It can be a lot better than this.
I know. Yeah. And it takes time. It takes
a lot of time and persistence.
Yeah. It's this thing is real about building relationships. I always say people do business with people they know, like, and trust.
I say that all the time.
So that process needs to happen.
Correct.
And you cannot force it or push it.
Yeah, it doesn't happen overnight. Unfortunately, or I think I'd have a lot more friends.
Yeah, especially the trust, because right now I have a similar story in a way that most of people that I do business with today, I know them, they're relationships. People that I met 15 years ago when I was an intern at a company. And to me, disappointing that person is like, I could never do that.
Correct.
So when I get projects from people like that, which are a lot, I'm like super committed. I'm like, I don't care about anything. I need to make this person look good.
Yeah, you want to go above and beyond.
Correct. It's your name there. I'm like, this is insane. I need to do it. And it has good things and bad things, because for one side, you're committed to help them and do your best. On the other side, which is what's happening to us right now, is now there are a lot of those together. And I'm like, okay, who do I do first?
Right.
But I think that's what the relationship showed up, because I can be honest and say, hey, we cannot start your project.
Right.
I'm sending some proposals tomorrow. And I said, I cannot start for 90 days. When we'll do it, but
being able to manage people's expectations and that they have faith in you and being able to perform. And then, I like to, what is it? Overpromise, underpromise, and overdeliver.
Yeah, that's right.
I almost said it wrong.
Yeah.
No, and it's like I like to exceed people's expectations.
Yeah.
Because if you do, you're the first person top of mind when they think of the next project. It's like, okay, they did a kick-ass job. Like, let me put them in the mix. So.
Yeah. So you join CBRE here, you start working with Joe. How does that go? Give me a quick summary of that.
You want to know what's funny is Joe is phenomenal. He's been great to work with. And I will say in the very beginning, when he came onto CB, I think in his mind it was, I'm going to build everything on this team and, make a pick for everyone that I want. Kind of like building a bench. And, Compy Newman, who is our managing director, I'm very close with and always have been. I think it's, his wife's also from Eastern North Carolina, so we have that in common. But, Compy was like, yeah, absolutely, come on to the team. And Joe didn't really have a say. And, when I came on, it was like, all right, wait, who is she? Wait, what does she do? What does she know? And so I think the first little bit, we both were kind of like feeling each other out, like, okay, is this going to be a fit? Is this going to work? I want to say it was like a year later. Joe said I was the best choice he never made.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, now I feel good about things.
Yes.
It's just, you never know how people are going to work together. And listen, we've had instances where personalities are not a fit.
I know.
But Joe and I have a great, yin and yang back and forth. He can dish it, as can I.
Yeah.
And we both let it roll over on our back. And, we have a good time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to have Joe back again in the podcast because he was number 2.
No, he was not.
Yeah. He was
Number
number
2.
2. Yeah. And it was a great episode. He didn't have white hair. Just kidding.
I was about to say, you are lying right now.
I'm just kidding.
I know he's had white hair since he was 16.
I know. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry,
number
Joe.
2. Wait, who was number 1?
Chris Budluck.
He's so great too.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Okay.
When I was
Dang.
going to start the podcast, I said, I'm going to do 6 episodes, like all the recordings complete before I start releasing them. Because I didn't want pressure to start doing it. So I'm going to batch 6. And I was very nervous and scared to do it. I was very self-conscious of my accent. I love the
accent.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
And I said, okay, I need someone who's going to lead this conversation, who's, outgoing and I feel good about. And I'm like, Chris Budluck. And he's far,
so great.
And since he's the first one, most people listen to that one. And it went great. That's another one I want to redo. Yeah.
Okay.
And I did John Christenberry.
Yep.
I think he was
Also
3.
great.
And then I just kept going. And you
You really
one.
started like on a high note with these guys.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. It was a risk because I didn't know what people are going to think about it. I wasn't sure how to do it.
Sure.
It's working.
And now you've got some trailblazers behind you also doing these podcasts. I mean, it's great.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's taken off.
Yeah. So tell me about, the last 5 years making things happen here in Charlotte.
5 years, goodness. Yeah. So I will say it has been fantastic. When Joe came over, I realized I was in a very special, unique situation that when he came to CB, he brought a lot of assignments with him, a lot of great assignments. And he put me right alongside him on all of those. And it was a great learning experience. So we've been in the trenches together from day one, which has been great. And then also learning beside Ann Volcano. She's a wonderful teacher. And so, learned a lot from her.
Yeah.
And the last several years have been great. COVID was scary at first. And as was for everyone, we were all in the same boat together. And we liked working alongside each other so much that Joe had a carriage house at the time. And we literally had a card table with like 4 little boxes around it that we would just come in with our laptops every day and work together. Because we were just like, I can't do this every day from home. Like, this is depressing. And, and then we toward the summer coming into the fall, we started sneaking into the office.
Yeah.
We were just like, nobody's here. They won't tell. And then we got in trouble for it. And then I think we reopened in September. They're like, okay, you're back.
Yeah.
And I think, after that, I think we struck some luck with some really good deals coming into 21 and 22. So they've been great years.
Yeah.
I can't complain whatsoever.
What's the deal you're most proud of?
Gosh, it's a good question. Most proud of. I have several. 2 that probably the ones that took the longest.
Yep.
Just because it was, let's see here, Gale Pacific and Colorant Solutions at the Exchange.
Mm-hmm.
Only because I say this, they were heating up pre-COVID. COVID hits, almost everything's just let's see what's happening with the world. And so, I don't want to sound like I'm bad at my job, but they took 2.5 years each.
Sure.
From the first inquiry to when we signed the deal.
Yeah.
And so it just took so much persistence and follow up and creativity. Hey guys, how do we get you back out to tour? The space is available, and so many twists and turns. And I so appreciate the brokers on both sides of those deals because I'm sure I pestered the shit out of them.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, both deals made. We have 2 very happy tenants. And I think I'm most proud of them just because how long it took.
Yeah.
There were 10,000 square feet each. It wasn't like they were monster deals, but
Sure.
it took a lot of sweat equity to get them done. And I was very proud at the end of the day. So
wow, that's awesome. Yeah, and I think it's because you work for it so much.
Well, yeah, I mean,
At some point, we need recognition.
Like I was like, gosh, this, I'm paying Dilwig at this point.
So
like,
when you have a a potential client, someone you can help. What's your sales philosophy personally? What that balance between like I don't want to call too much that I'm gonna be a pain, but I want to make sure that I'm in front of them, but too much. But sometimes I really need this to happen. Like, what's your mental decision making to, call again and email,
I like to have a little more finesse than just straight calling an email. So I'm like, hey, can I take you to lunch?
Yeah.
Like there's a new restaurant in town. Like, let's go have dinner together and then just like expense it to the client. But yeah, I hate being pestered and micromanaged. Like it is literally the bane of my existence.
Yeah.
So please God, don't call me 3 times, 3 voicemails, 2 text messages, like y'all come on.
You're in the blacklist already.
No, people want to do business with people they like.
Yeah.
And I want to make the deal easy for you. I try to be absolutely as transparent as possible to a tenant broker so they can't be their client. And I'm like, here's where I can get you. But like it has to be within these bounds. And you have 3 buckets to choose from. You can do rent, rate, TI, and free rent. So pick your poison and let's get this done.
Yeah.
But no, I try to be pretty creative with it. And I don't like to pester people. I like to give people space. And I also like to have a good attitude while I'm doing it. Because listen, I can't tell you how many times I will shit talk someone if I'm really frustrated. Yeah. Like before I pick up the phone and then I'm like, hey, how you doing? And then I get off, I'm like, okay, that wasn't so bad. But it's like, people don't want to hear from me if I'm in a bad mood about something. Sure. Or anybody for that sake. Like, get out of here. So
Yeah, it's interesting because I always say as long as our NYMER clients are 10% or less, we're good. Because there's always going to be a NYMER in your professional world.
Whether it's a client or a deal I'm
it's
working.
Not perfect. It's not perfect.
Honestly, I thought about this prior to this interview. It's the hard deals and the hard clients that make you better at your job.
100%.
Because like if everything were easy peasy clients and deals, like I'd be a pretty shitty broker, I think.
Yeah.
But like when I have to think out of the box and like get creative with either it's a client or a tough asset or a tough deal, that's how we become better.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you could probably say the same.
Sure.
So.
The Power of Design podcast is brought to you by OSA Studio, a multidisciplinary design firm focused on creating impactful experiences through the power of design. We partner with our clients to create buildings, interior spaces, brands, and strategies that help you deliver a successful project. As a minority-owned firm, we are committed to building a diverse platform of curious and driven design professionals so we can together pursue our full potential. For more information, please visit us at www.osastudio.com.
What do you think makes you good at what you do?
I am a good people person. I genuinely love like hanging out with people.
Yeah.
I usually keep Sundays to myself. I call them mental health Sundays.
Yes.
Where I'm just like, all right, I'm refueling. I don't want to see anyone. I don't want to hang out with anybody. Like Sundays are for me. But, Monday through Saturday, I want to be doing something every day. After work, lunch, you name it.
Yeah.
I am a social gal and I carry that into work. And so I think people enjoy just working with me.
So where does that come from?
So my dad is a very social human. I think growing up with that, as well as my grandparents, they are all just very much like people's people. Like my dad, you could go to the grocery store, he'd be behind some lady in the cash line and just like, oh, those potato chips, like, oh, aren't those the best things you've ever had? And it's like, this lady's like, are you talking to me?
Yeah.
And he's just so easy and it's so natural that people, they kind of go to him. And it's like, I feel like that's kind of a little bit where I got it from.
Yeah. And
So.
if it's, something you enjoy and is natural to you, you're not really making an effort.
It doesn't come across as selling.
You're just being who you are, and
Yeah.
it just so happen that it adds a lot of value in your industry to
Correct.
help people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, it's like, I have a space, you need a space. How do we make it work?
Yeah.
And how do we go about it the easiest way?
Wow.
Like,
You won the lottery. Not many people have the chance to do what they like and use their
remind
skills
myself all
to
the time.
and make money out of it. Most
Correct.
people, they don't like what they do.
I don't take it for granted. I am very grateful that I am in the role that I'm in and that I have the opportunities that I do because, honestly, I think a lot of people should start in jobs that are terrible.
Yeah.
That they're just like, is this the rest of my life?
Yeah.
And then by the time you come around to a job or a career that's great, you're just more appreciative for it.
Yeah.
And so I am thankful every single day that I work with the team that I do, the company that I'm with, the clients that I have. I am very fortunate.
That's awesome. So today, 2023, Charlotte, North Carolina. So we see, blogs and the news and this company and this people, a lot of people hiring, and then this building is going to back to the lender, and there is this huge vacancy rate, but then there is this big deal happening. in my mind, I get all that, and it's like conflicting information.
So I was going to ask, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, as someone who's not like directly involved in every single deal.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because the main conversation, at least locally here in real estate, is office, right? Like the office marketplace has always been very healthy. There's a lot of people that have to go to work, big employers, big corporations, and then COVID happened, and then the whole thing about going to hybrid and working from home, and then that happened a while ago, and then everybody now investing on construction to bring people back to the office.
Correct.
And now they're like, you want to come back to the office, and everybody's like, well, I don't know, like maybe I don't want to go back to the office.
Right.
So some people are going. So it's this whole kind of mixed of information, and it's interesting. And
it's a lot of contradicting information.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think it's real because I think the most valuable thing that COVID brought to not even our industry, to the world, is that a lot of people are rethinking their lives. And what does work mean? A lot of people like retiring early, leaving their jobs. A lot of people starting businesses. I think one of the things that happen with workplace is, that's what we do as an adults to provide value to society so we can make money, so we can pay for our families and our lives. But there is a point where I really think we are a workaholic society. So the problem with that is the problem is not that you have to go to work. That's fine. I mean, we'll do it and it's okay.
Yeah.
But it's when you think you are what you do and you're not what you do. What you do is what you do, and who you are. So a lot of people find a lot of meaning in what they do and their results. And you can see, when you meet somebody and this is my friend, he's a doctor. Oh, this is my friend, he's an architect. And it's like, let me attach a profession or a craft to this person so there's value for them.
Sure.
And that's the way it is, but it's not real because we're not what we do. So I think there is a huge awakening about doing things and creating value that most people are realizing, okay, maybe before in, baby boomer generation, it was like, work. And you see society is, how are you doing? Great. I'm working 80 hours a week. Oof, dude, awesome. Like this rewarding. Like if you neglect your family, yourself, your self-care, then that's good. No, I'm making all this money. Like is value in all this is the result of the craft. So I think real estate and COVID kind of creating a wrench in that, and now it's happening. So now we're getting to the point where people value more. Well, if you don't provide me what I need on my workplace, then I don't work there.
Sure.
Because there's this other company that is flex and hybrid, and I can get this and that. Right. So it's not all about going to the machine and produce.
No, you said that very well. I do think COVID gave people perspective and allowed them to prioritize what their job was in their life.
Yeah.
And being in the South and have lived in other markets, you know, that literally is the first question out of people's mouth. Hey, I'm Steph. Oh, what do you do?
Yeah.
And who do you work for?
Yeah.
Why is that number one priority in people's minds? But I will also say COVID now put pressure on employers to give folks a quality of life in the office.
Yeah.
Whereas I think before that just wasn't the case.
Yeah.
It was like, you know, we're the employer, you're the employee, you're the worker bee. Like we'll see you 40 to 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
So I think it's created this balance, which is great. And, you know, it's just a flight to quality. Like no one wants to work in the cube farm with the, you know, terrible lighting, no windows. Like I think that's behind us, which is why we're seeing big blocks of vacancy.
Yeah.
In certain areas of Charlotte. But, you know, it's just like you have to reimagine these spaces. What do the people want? And if we're hybrid, we're just, you know, we're right sizing with our space and being more efficient, but also amenitizing said space. And if we're going to right size, maybe it's a better building. And it goes back to amenities arms race. Like as a landlord and a landlord broker, what do our tenants want? And, you know, that's something we're figuring out every single day. And how do we steer tenants toward properties that we want them in? And it's, you know, it's quality and it's amenities.
Yeah.
I mean, Lord, you're working on 128 South Tryon for us right now with amenities.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's just, it's a really fine balance. And it's so funny because if you look at it across the board, you know, all 8 of these buildings have the same amenities. They're virtually in the same location. What makes one better than the other?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's, you know, it's a lot of factors. It's, you know, speed to execution. I think we're seeing that a lot. People need decisions made yesterday. So if you have spec suites, that's a big deal for a lot of employers and tenants. Yeah, so it's just a lot of factors driving everything. But I think it was a good reset.
Yeah.
That was kind of needed because I do agree. I think some people were just living to work, which is unfortunate.
Yeah. So if you were to describe, you know, the perfect office based on your, you know, expertise, opinion, and experience today, like if somebody comes to you, Stephanie, I need an office that is going to attract the most amazing talent. How does that office need to look like?
What we're seeing today, you need to have some sort of hybrid model in your workspace.
Okay.
You know, it probably needs to be free address, you know, not designated seating. People can kind of work where they want to. It makes an employee feel like they have a say in where they sit. And you don't want to be just like, here's where I'm plucking you and here's where you're going to sit for 8 hours a day. You know, so a mix of phone rooms, a few offices, and it also depends on the industry, right? Like if you're fee for service, you're legal, it's going to be all billed out. You're not going to have a lot of benching or anything like that.
Yeah.
So it depends on the sector that you're in. But, you know, having good collaborative areas, I know in our space, which, Lord, we're coming up on a year in CB's office at Vantage. There's so many collaboration areas and, you know, it's like a lot of the office has lunch together in the break room, which is huge.
Yeah.
It kind of flows right off of our reception. But two, I mean, personally as an employee as well, I like somewhere that has walkability, which is why South End is such a hit.
Oh, yeah.
You can walk to everything. Like,
yes, that's huge.
You don't want to be on an island with no food nearby that you have to drive to every day. And unfortunately, that is the case for some assets. And for the owners that we represent where that is the case, it's like, how do we activate your asset? And it's, you know, food trucks, like those are all the rage. I mean, everybody can get food trucks. But having a nice building, having hybrid working space, having good amenities in your building. I mean, those are big drivers that we see. So
yeah, I have a client that their current space is probably 15, 20 years old. So it's a bunch of private offices. So for them, the open workspace is a new concept.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to explain it, you know, we show pictures, we show plans, and they're like, no, we really like. So today we went on tour 4 offices that I think they're, you know, good representation of contemporary workplace. And once they walked the space and saw it, their mindset shift immediately.
Okay.
because they would like, oh, got it. I see, I understand it now. And that's one of the things that to me is important for, for you guys and even for us when you're communicating to a potential client or a client you're working for. They're in their industry. They do something else. For them, it's hard to really understand, look at a floor plan and imagine how that feels when you're working.
Yeah, that's
so
impossible.
sometimes they don't even have the enough information to make the decision.
Right.
And that to me is very dangerous because they might be making the wrong decision.
It's a valid point.
Yeah. So one of the things we do is, the VR goggles. I'm sure you have seen that, because at least it's not a picture of a space. It's not a rendering. Your brain feels it.
Right.
And they're like, oh, got it. Because for us, it's easier because we live in space every day. We can connect the dots. So I think having the ability to communicate to the client exactly what's in your brain, not just your words, because they have a different interpretation, is extremely helpful.
I mean, that goes to the technology aspect of all of this. It's like, advancements in technology is just making us better at our jobs, and making it easier for us to sell, because clearly, like, we've done this enough. We can see the forest through the trees, and you get folks on a tour and they're like, they can't see past the paint on the wall.
Yeah.
But being able to do like VR, renderings these days are so realistic. It's obscene.
It's insane.
I mean, our Queensbridge Collective, we did a marketing video with Neoscape out of Chicago. And I mean, it was down to what were our little virtual people wearing?
Yeah.
I think the first one they sent out, I was like, y'all, these people are in cash clothes. Like, we need them a little bit more dressed up. We need her in heels, like a little more polished. And they turned it around. And I was like, this is insane.
Yeah.
This is crazy. So just like advancements in technology just makes it that much easier for us to sell our product. And for the vision to come to life, because it doesn't come as natural to a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not hard to sell space.
No, it is not.
Yeah, because that's what we're selling. Like, I always say, what we're designing as architects, more than what you see is what you don't see. We're designing the empty space in between the architecture, right? We're using the space in between these four walls. We're not in the walls.
Right.
So we're designing in the negative space, and that's where humans perform life. We just use elements like walls, roofs, ceilings, lighting to give certain definition to that space, and more than the space, the human experience of that space.
Correct.
And that's where I think the magic happens, because I think sometimes people focus too much on what they see, and things that they like or they don't like, but they're kind of irrelevant to the real experience of the space for the specific use.
Right. I agree with that. And that's where you come in, bringing the space to life, which is so great. And it's great to have folks like you, because, like, especially when we're trying to sell a client something, an owner, 128 example, like, it's like, guys, we need to make this into a boutique fitness. Like, this is one of the things we're lacking as an amenity in the building. And for you to be able to, like, bring that to life is fantastic, because then that sells the client. They're like, yeah, let's do it. This looks great. So,
yeah.
And they're like, what does it cost? I'm like, yeah, don't worry about that.
That's not a problem.
Yeah, we'll figure that one out. So.
Yeah. Cool. So if someone wants to, a younger professional wants to follow, your career, or, do the things that you're doing, what advice will you give to that person?
Be persistent and know someone. No, I'm kidding. No, be persistent though. I always appreciated the people that sat down with me for a coffee when I was getting into the business.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget the appreciation that I had for it. So whenever I get a call or an email from someone that's like in college or coming out of college, and they're, just looking to pick my brain a little bit, I am always happy to give the time.
Yeah.
But I always just tell folks, literally reach out to as many people as you can. Yeah. And I'll give you 10 names to contact, to just say, hey, can I have 15, 20 minutes of your time for coffee? And several of those people are in real estate now. And it's like, our roles don't open up every day. I mean, we're a small market.
Yeah.
Essentially. And it's not like we have that many brokers in our market for office space. But yeah, just being persistent is probably the best thing you can do. Making sure to follow up, send a thank you note, handwritten goes a long way. I always tell folks that. Just because you don't see that anymore.
Yeah.
I don't even think they teach cursive in school these days.
No,
It's
they
like,
don't.
I think when I found that out, I was like, wait, what? How do people sign their name?
You know, it's funny because my wife yesterday was talking about that some other mom said, can't believe they don't teach cursive anymore. And my wife was like, what do you need that for?
What do you need that for? Are
Yeah.
you kidding me? Like, how do you sign a signature? That's what I
Well,
get.
that's interesting because like my kids, they all have their signature and they're not cursive. You just create a signature.
I mean, I
you don't
can't
need
say
to know
mine's any
cursive.
better. Mine's
Yeah.
literally a squiggle like a doctor wrote it.
Right.
I
So
know, it's like,
that's
nah,
all
it's a joke.
that's all you need. So it's interesting because I think that's, I don't know, that's more, I think that's a baby boomer thing.
Yeah, no. But yeah, back to that. I mean, I will say persistence and dress for the job you want, not the one you have.
Oh, yeah.
I, especially, and I hate going back to COVID because it's just very relevant at this time, but post-COVID, I can go to lunch, Flower Child. I can't tell you how many times I just go to lunch and someone will approach me and say, you look so nice.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I only look this nice because I'm the only one in real clothes in this room. Like,
Yes.
You know, and so I wish, you know, and I get it. A lot of people are hybrid, they're remote, but everyone's just in athleisure everywhere I go.
Yes.
And it blows my mind.
Yes.
And I'm just like, I mean, I get it. If you're crushing it in your job and you can do it remote, that is fantastic. But at the end of the day, like, I feel like there's going to be an imbalance at some point between like mental health and workplace and all that blending together as one, working remote 100%. It boggles me a little bit.
Yes.
I'm like, get out, put on some pants. Like,
Yeah. Well,
come
it's
to the real world.
It's huge. It's huge because it, you know, there is when I got married, my wife is from Venezuela.
Mhm.
So when we got married, since you know I was young and I was single, I never really pay a lot of attention about you know what I wear or whatever. I was like just a t-shirt and some jeans and whatever. Like I never like really care about it. So we got married and like 3 months later, my wife's like, "You gonna wear that to work?" I'm like, "Sure." "Oh, okay. You gonna wear those shoes with those pants?" I'm like, "Yeah."
You're like, what are you saying?
So it was interesting because there was some friction.
Sure.
Like I started to realize like she wants to even control the way I look. What's happening here? So and there is something interesting, and is that culturally Colombia and Venezuela and two, you know, countries that are close together, but they're completely different cultures.
Okay.
I don't know if you have realized, but like Miss Universe, every like 2 years is a Venezuelan. Like Venezuela wins Miss Universe all the time.
Oh, it's because they're stunning.
Yeah. So they're in their culture, beauty, you know, aesthetic beauty is huge. It's part of the culture. Like if you're gonna go to the supermarket, you don't wear flip-flops. Like everybody looks good all the time.
They're dressed to the nines.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it comes from, you know, like wearing like main ties in the 50s and everybody looking really good all the time. That stay there. It's important. So it took a while for me to understand, okay, got it. For her, it's so important. And I said, okay. And I thought, if I don't really care about how I dress, then I wear whatever I want.
Sure.
So I said, what do you want me to wear? She's like, she gets me this, you know, clothes. I go to work and people are like, man, you look good.
So you're telling me you looked that bad before?
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I feel good. And then like, yeah, buy more. She buys more. She buys up probably 98% of what I wear.
So she has good taste in clothes.
Yeah. She buys everything. I don't think about it. She buys it. And then I started gaining an appreciation because there is a huge deal in the way you look when you're communicating to others.
100%.
You know, I do a lot of brand design work, and sometimes people don't understand what is a brand. And I said, a brand, imagine, is like a person, right? Before I talk to you, when I see you, I'm going to make a judgment based on how you look.
I mean, that's the initial thing you
Yes,
can. Like,
because we're humans.
Right.
If I'm going to interview two people and one is in a tie and looks great and the other one is in flip-flops, without talking, I'm already putting them in different categories.
Exactly
so it's not something that you're judging. It's just human reaction because we're all attracted to order and structure and beauty because it gives us peace. It's logical. So I explained that to companies when I want to do the branding, that they could be a great company, but they look horrible, right? So it's like, imagine you're a teenager and you're going, or you're looking for someone to date. What do you try to do? You want to look your best because you want to control the experience, and that's branding, right? And if you're a horrible person after they meet you, well, yeah,
that's on you.
There's nothing you can do. But being congruent with who you are as a person and how you look is huge.
Well, too, I also think it's like, if I'm having a shitty day, if I look good, I feel better. And so it's just like, I don't know. I want to put forth my best foot. Incorrect. I am an extension of the brand of my company, of my team, of the work that I do. And so, don't catch me on a Saturday in the winter. Like, I look absolutely homeless. There's no in between with my aesthetic. I'm either living in a shack or I'm ready to go. So, but Monday through Friday, I put my best foot forward. And honestly, I feel like it's a differentiator, for most people. So
yeah, and it makes you
if you look good, you feel good.
Feel good about yourself. You have more confidence. You like yourself better, which at the end of the day is the only thing that matters.
It's all about the mental health.
That's right. Awesome. Do you have any questions for me?
No, I think this was fantastic. I so appreciate you taking the time. I'm glad to be number 81.
Sure.
I'll be glad to come back as like number 160 when you wrap back around.
Next year.
But no, thank you so much for the time. I do appreciate it.
No, thank you, Stephanie.
Yeah.
I'm very happy to
this is
have
great.
you here. And
the wine's even better. Everyone, this is...
yes. Partners and Grapes.
Partners and Grapes.
Yeah.
Coming to a restaurant near you. Be on the lookout.
That's right. Awesome, Stephanie. Can't wait to see what's next for you, because I think you're set up to create, things that are bigger than what you think.
Thank you.
And it's going to be amazing. So congratulations and keep going.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for listening to the Power of Design podcast. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review if you like this content. And find us online at thepowerofdesignpodcast.com. I invite you to join my mission to become a better version of yourself through the power of design.